What's up, everybody? Brett here, and we're back today looking at another 2v2 Total War Warhammer 2. Today I'm going to be playing as Norska, led up by Throg. My ally is going to be the Warriors of Chaos, piloted by my friend Triari, and we're going to be going up against the Dwarves and the Empire, a very difficult faction combo to beat. The Empire can bring healing magic, they both can bring tons and tons of gunpowder and artillery, and against mostly melee-focused factions and monstrous-focused factions like Norska and the Warriors of Chaos, that combo can be pretty difficult to beat, especially considering the effectiveness. Let's go ahead and bring up the unit card here of units like great swords against chaos, of long beards. So they're just going to have a really stalwart front line, and we could just go ahead slow-mo it for a minute as we try and posture in position. We had this huge area on which to deploy, right? But as we've begun this battle, Triari and I decided, you know what, they're dwarves, they're empire, they're going to want these hills. So let's overload this flank as quickly as we can. We're going to use the superior infantry of chaos, mostly chaos warriors here. We have the mirror guard in the center, marauders out on the flanks. Nice choices there by Triari. We're going to use them to hit home on a kind of a one-on-one square engagement. Meanwhile, I'm going to use my very cheap marauders. They're shielded. They have that Norskin mechanic for all their infantry, rage. So the more they fight, the stronger they get. And I'm going to use them as a bit of a flank denial here to try and keep dwarf infantry from running into, our back line, quote unquote. But mostly just to take the fight to the Empire as hard as we can and to take them out and minimize the effectiveness of the dwarves. So while that infantry is running straight up, my infantry is going to be pulling a flank denial. My monstrous units in the form of these Norskin ice trolls, who are really powerful, huge weapon strength. They also have frostbite, same as Throg, and they of course regen. Not bad leadership 45 as long as they're fighting near leadership units. Would have been nice to actually have some aspiring champions perhaps fighting amongst our army, keeping these trolls in check. I also took one single unit of Fimir. Their armor sundering is great. Magical damage not so good against the dwarves, but the armor sundering certainly makes up for it. And since the dwarven faction is basically entirely infantry, the standard Fimir warriors do a great job against them, and they're a pretty cheap option also. Much better leadership than the trolls, but I was trying to, have fun. Sometimes you gotta have fun. And we're going up and around here with some of our fast movers. I have 2 units of skin wolves here out on the flanks, and they're being chaperoned, I guess, by the Chaos Warhounds, and then 2 groups of Chaos Knights with lances. So they're anti-infantry, great here. They're shielded, heavily armored at 120, and it's all about the charge bonus of 80. Whenever they hit something, they hit it hard. I've got my Shaman Sorcerer with the Lore of Metal. Final Transmutation is going to be pretty important here for that direct damage, but I also took the Scroll of Shielding, 22% damage resistance, and I'm going to end up giving that to my Chaos Sorcerer Lord ally here. Once he starts getting focused down pretty hard, I'm going to recognize that we need that 22% ward save to keep him alive. And he's also a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal as well. The Lore of Metal has Plague of Rust, which lowers dwarven armor, and Final Transmutation on blobbed up geometric formations like this generally is really strong. He's also got an Exalted Hero here on a Feral Manticore, just a great melee hero, and having these Chaos Feral Manticores to chase down Balthazar Gelt, who is also casting his own Final Transmutation of Lead, so triple Lore of Metal casters here on the battlefield. You don't get to see that very often. But he's going to try and chase down Gelt. But he's got so much fire support from all of these Thunderers in the back line. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4 Thunderers. And let's see how many handgunners we see from the Empire. 2 regular handgunners and 1 silver bullets with that magic damage. And just a big core of standard spearmen and great swords making up the front line, with the Sigmar Sons, the unbreakable swordsman unit here in the center. Pretty great unit to sit there. They'll be able to go toe-to-toe with Chaos Warriors if they need to. They'll fight to the last, and they will last a long time. So he's also got the Dragonback Slayers here, protecting his artillery. I see 1 cannon from the Dwarves, the Hammer of the Witches from the Empire, and awesome artillery piece. And that's pretty much it. I kind of like that he didn't go too overboard on the artillery. Just got enough just to make sure they had the artillery advantage, but really focused their resources on getting as many Thunderers as possible. So yeah, just the Chaos Sorcerer Lord taking tons of damage. I'm managing to get up and around with my Frostworm, who was a pick that I was very happy with by the end of this game. while the skin wolves are trying to mix it up in the back line and tie down the thunderers, I'm going to be using my frost wyrm to attempt to get huge frost breaths and to kill large amounts of infantry if I can. So, alright, what do we have left to talk about? Not much. I mean, I have Throg. Throg is just a great all-around fighter. He has his vomit, which costs about 200 gold, but I thought I made pretty good use of it this game. I got a lot of kills based off of it. Regen makes him tankier, of course, but then he also has fight or die for that leadership and melee attack bonus. Gonna want to keep my trolls near him to make sure that their leadership is high, and trying to keep them on the great swords as opposed to the spears to make sure that we don't get wrecked. Ungrim Iron Fist in the back is going to be an excellent duelist versus Throg. He's basically designed to pick out large targets, and he has almost all of his abilities. That's kind of crazy. He's unbreakable, death blow, armor piercing, weapon damage, foe seeker, red ruin for even more weapon damage and armor piercing, and then the axe of Dargo for bonus versus large and more armor piercing. So, yeah, if he fighting just about anything, he'll be able to kill it. And just lots and lots of long beards in the front line to anchor everything, with some miners and blasting charges in the back to hold it down. The last most important unit on the battlefield has to be the Royal Outdwarf Gryphites. They're anti-large, armor piercing. They cause terror, which is very good against a lot of the low leadership stuff that I have. But yeah, here we go. Let's go ahead and put it into standard speed. The cannons are opening up. The Thunderers are taking fire. And the Chaos Marauders, all of our units are shielded, thankfully. Otherwise, we'd be taking a beating. Throg does have regen, so as long as he's not taking overwhelming fire, he should be okay. My Norscan Night Trolls race out ahead of the infantry, but that's alright. They're going to get that huge initial charge and start crushing these greatswords. That's exactly the targets that they want to be on. There we go. The Scroll of Shielding pops on the Chaos Sorcerer Lord while he was taking all that focus fire. I managed to get some of my Skin Wolves up and around, and Triara also charges in with the Chaos Knights. Transmutation of Lead, lowering melee attack and weapon strength. I think that's the Norgamling's Ironbreakers up here, and they're going to be an excellent means of defending this back line. But the Royal Outdwarf Gryphites get committed. They're much weaker. The Dragonback Slayers get committed, and we're able to pretty steadily overwhelm this formation just with all of these debuffs. I'm going to be looking for as strong of a breath attack as I can get. I've already got one off, 39 kills, and I'm keeping him in the air because I need him to be mobile so that he doesn't get shot to death by all of those Thunderers. So, like I said, I'm using my Marauders here to deny this flank. I wanted to make sure that we didn't get wrapped up by all this infantry, and I wanted to have an opportunity for my Marauder Hunters to throw their javelins in. But here you see the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass managed to surround and slow the Chaos Dragon with the Sorcerer Lord on his back, and they're able to kill him. But I'm using my guys to focus down primarily the Silver Bullets and this other unit of handgunners here. And they're going to be able to skirmish them out fairly well. We have succeeded in overloading this flank. However, we're not succeeding in penetrating this back line here and shutting down all of these Thunderers. So it looks like I might be lining up here for another breath attack. Let's see if I get a fairly decent one and what I end up going for. Perhaps not. Perhaps just a few more seconds waiting for that breath attack. But he's starting to take damage, and I need to continuously circle him around. Okay, that was pretty devastating. So that was another 30 kills, all Thunderers. My Marauders are starting to push through. Norscan Ice Trolls are getting caught up on the Norgamling's Icebreakers. Ironbreakers, not Icebreakers. There's a lot of ice things going on in this battle, but they are a tough unit. They might not be able to get many kills, but they're not going to die in this battle. And a final transmutation going off on us, but at the same time, I've gotten some pretty good ones off on them. My Shaman Sorcerer of Metal is fighting here. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's one of them. I think I get 3 off this game, but this one's going to be pretty devastating. It's not upgraded. I think my initial cast was an upgraded one, but against the Dwarves, that's not going to do a ton. You mainly want to use it against the Empire forces, because as I've said before, the Dwarves have that innate magic resistance. So Gelt is being chased down by the Exalted Hero, but he's got plenty of backup. My Skin Wolves were being used to chase things off the battlefield. They've rallied, they've come back, and we're going to try and get them in amongst these Longbeards, but mostly just to tie down the Thunders to keep them from firing. And you'll see as they charge in, pretty awesome looking units, just straight up werewolves fighting. But sadly, the Dragonback Slayers are here. They are designed to kill the Skin Wolves. They don't do fire damage, thankfully. least I don't remember them doing that. They do call it flammable, but they don't themselves do fire damage. That would be awful because the skin wolves do regenerate. And at this point, I've had to bring down my frost worm. I got my third breath attack off, and I was just trying to shut down the silver bullets, and just nothing doing. I ran out of ammunition on my marauder hunters, so I was no longer able to out-skirmish them. Being chased off by some of the remaining greatswords, Triari's trying to use his cavalry to its best effect, and we'll see here. Big charge in on the greatswords. They're going to do a lot of initial shock damage. But the Royal Outdoor Griffites are in hot pursuit of these Chaos Knights. And it looks like at this point, Triari just needs to stand and fight them because they're just fast enough to be able to catch him. Throg is in the mix, killing some of the warriors of Dragonfire Pass, killing Longbeards. He's good against all these targets, but I noticed he was starting to take lots of focus fire. So I pulled him out. Let's see if we can get him in and amongst some marauders. That doesn't really provide him much cover, however, because he's a very tall unit. Nice vomit attack going off on those Longbeards, getting him a few more kills. But if you can land that, let's say, down a straight line like this here on these Longbeards, you can kill half of them with a single vomit attack. It's usually not worth it. I did it for fun. Like I said, 200 gold. I mean, just for a little bit more, you could get another unit of Marauders. Probably would have been more worth it. My Frostworm here, kind of MVP for my side of the battlefield. 121 kills right now, despite being at a massive target for all of this Thunderer fire. But the biggest problem for us, we were never able to shut down this back line. And we didn't have enough tools to flank. A lot of our flanking tools were very costly. Triari's, Chaos Knights with lances are extremely expensive. I went with the standard skin wolves instead of the armored variant because I wanted to make sure that I had enough gold to fill out the rest of my army. But once that Chaos Sorcerer Lord went down, that was a huge chunk of our army's values. But a great battle there from everyone. We did the best with what we could. I mean, you give the Empire and the Dwarves that much time to fire with their gunpowder units, you give them that kind of a commanding hill position, and you're just not able to shut them down, and you're going to have a bad time. The Dwarven infantry is super stalwart. Even their backline, the Thunderers, are basically melee units, weaker melee units. They're heavily armored. They're not easy for units like Marauders to take out. We really needed big, impactful charges from the Chaos Knight. Some of them did fine. But with the amount of magic that Gelt was able to put out, he was able to focus down some of our higher priority targets because we didn't have as many targets to focus. So he was really able to narrow in with his magic. And yeah, one of the Chaos Knights got absolutely wrecked. Unfortunately, the Pharaoh Manticore was not able to shut him down completely. And then Triari also had to commit the Exalted Hero to try and shut him down. Still wasn't able to get him. And it was just kind of tragedy after tragedy for us. Check out my units. Throg did okay. The Shaman Sorcerer, tons of damage. I mean, if you get 3 transmutations of lead off in a battle like that, all on very good, solid blobs of units, you're going to get a lot of damage. Not necessarily a ton of kills, but he probably did more damage than any other unit on the battlefield this game. And then, of course, my Frostworm was very effective. I wish that Triari and I had coordinated the use of my Skin Wolves a bit better. I was the first to engage on that flank. Triari followed up with his Chaos Knights, and that kind of sandwiched my Skin Wolves into that huge blob fight on the leftmost flank. And I wasn't able to pull them out. We needed to be kind of cycle charging a bit more and trying to find those weak spots. Really get behind them instead of just committing to a flank and hoping that we could overwhelm it and push through. Because at the end of the day, we really weren't able to do that. My Norscan Ice Trolls performed solidly. I was very happy with them. I mean, I was pretty happy with my army choice in general. If I was going to try and play a much more try-hard style build, I would probably change out the Norscan Ice Trolls and just get 3 Familiar Warriors instead. And perhaps with some of the extra gold, I think there would be a little bit of extra gold. Not sure. Maybe cut an extra spell from the Shaman Sorcerer and definitely cut the Breath Attack from Throg. And I would end up with probably 500, 600 more gold. Maybe get 1 more Marauder Hunters with Javelins. And then I think I would have a much more competitive build, certainly versus the Dwarves, and also not bad against the Empire as well. But anyway, guys, thanks to Triari for being a great ally. Our army styles really complement each other. And, thanks to our opponents for being good sports. They definitely beat us this time, just through solid play, good micro, and great army compositions. I think their army compositions were really what did this for them. And I've got one more game from this series. This was game 2, and I hope you guys stick around and enjoy those. Once again, my name is Brett. My channel is Good Talk Gaming. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next one. Take care.